is that when you form an incarnation, when you form a personality, an ego structure, in order to experience physical reality, it is generally composed of definitions, beliefs, of emotions, of thought patterns, behaviors that comprise what you think of yourself as the physical person, the physical identity that you have. Those definitions are the blueprint level that determines what it is you are capable of experiencing physical reality to be. So beliefs, by their nature, by design, have to contain the ability, have to contain the resonance and the frequencies to get you to buy into them strongly, or you can't really have the focus necessary to believe what it is they're telling you and have a physical experience that is representative of that specific particular belief. So all beliefs will make themselves seem to be, in some ways, the only belief at that moment that it is possible to have. Now, being that you have both positive and negative beliefs, when you have the positive belief, in your mind, it's not really such a big deal that it is convincing you, or doesn't really need to convince you, of the good times you're having, of the good feelings that you're experiencing. But because really, truly, deep down, and also in your higher mind, so to speak, you really know the truth, that you really are infinite, eternal, indestructible beings who are absolutely worthy of the unconditional love and support of creation, because you really do know that in your heart of hearts, negative beliefs have to work very, very hard and very, very specifically in order to allow you to buy into the willing suspension of disbelief about that truth, in order for you to experience the concept of polarity. It's actually very, very difficult innately to buy into something negative about your true being. So, negative beliefs have to rely on a series of tricks and tools. They have to specifically target certain ideas and experiences within you and magnify, amplify, get you to focus on them in a very specific way in order for you to actually even let go of the notion that you are this worthy being and actually convince you that you're not worthy, convince you that life is a struggle, convince you that things aren't easy, because you know deep down they actually are. You know deep down in your natural self that things are very simple. And so, in order to experience the idea of polarity, in order to experience the idea of physical reality as an experience where you go through a process of forgetting who you are in order to remember who you are from a new point of view so you can expand your understanding of yourself, you make yourself, shall we say, available to all of the different ideas and negative beliefs that can exist within the realm of forgetfulness. Thus, working through those negative beliefs, transforming those negative beliefs into positive ones, transforming darkness into light, transforming limitation into freedom is the entire point. And so you will usually start with some form of negative belief that is representative of the theme you chose to explore in this life, that will raise its head in all the challenges that crop up that are representative of that theme in your life. But again, because a large part of being able to rediscover yourself from a new point of view is the fact that you have imposed forgetfulness upon yourself as a way of being able to do that, then the negative beliefs can seem from time to time to be very, very strong, very powerful, very profound. Now, of course, they are only deriving their power from you, but they are giving you the opportunity to explore the kind of scenarios that as an unlimited being you otherwise would not really be capable of exploring. Nevertheless, now that you are really approaching the end of the cycle of negativity and going more into the cycle of positive awareness, awakening, expansion of consciousness, now is the time to begin to truly remember that all the negative beliefs that you may have been dealing with and some of the ones you may continue to deal with for a little while longer in your life are really, really just ideas, in a sense, really smoke and mirrors, and that they really have to work very, very hard and focus very, very strongly on very specific issues within you in order to get you to buy into the idea that you are not worthy, in order to get you to buy into the idea that you should not investigate them, because they are, by again design, attempting to perpetuate themselves, attempting to reinforce themselves, attempting to make it seem as if they are the only reality that's possible. And when that idea comes from the negative side, they have many, many, many tools and tricks at their disposal to get you to buy into that scenario. Let us begin to examine some of those tools and tricks and expand upon them a little bit further so that you can really lock into this idea.
Convince you no other belief is as real.
All right, so we have touched on this a little bit. One of the first things that a negative belief must do to get you to stop looking elsewhere for an idea is convince you that they are really representative of reality and everything else is a fantasy.
Convince you no other belief is possible.
If, when they attempt to convince you that only they are real, and yet you still might have enough self-empowerment to go looking elsewhere and extract yourself from that belief, they will, as I said, amp up the power, magnify the power, and attempt to convince you that no other belief is possible.
Convince you positive beliefs are negative.
This is a very sneaky one. Because again, what they will do to convince you to stay exactly where they want you is they will color and filter an idea that might be representative of your truth, of your excitement, and make it appear to be something that is not. In fact, may make it appear to be something quite scary that you would want to stay away from. That's another trick they have to keep you exactly where they want you.
Convince you negative beliefs are positive.
This is the other side of the coin. Not only do they have to convince you that the positive beliefs are negative, but they have to convince you that they have your best interests at heart so that you will seek them out. Anytime you encounter a true positive reality that they have convinced you is scary, they will then also augment that with, oh, there, come here. I understand you. You're safe over here. I'll protect you from that big, bad, positive belief. Making themselves appear to be the hero to which you will gravitate.
Convince you to take negative things personally.
Many times the idea is that when you see other people who are going through negative issues, dealing with negative issues, you will understand that people who are afraid to dive deep in themselves and explore those issues will often project their own issues on other people, such as yourself. And if you don't have the wherewithal to neutralize the idea and recognize the difference between something that is actually your issue and something that is their issue, the negative belief may in fact convince you that what they're telling you about you is actually true, when in fact all they're actually doing is talking about themselves. Many people will resent being shown an example of what they believe they have failed at if they see someone succeeding at things they believe they cannot attain, and will project that resentment on others in the form of blaming others or saying others have the very negative traits that they themselves actually have but are in denial about within themselves because they're afraid to look at it based on what their negative beliefs have told them they should not do. You should not look at this. So the idea of neutralizing this is to remember not to take things personally. It's always wise to listen to someone and see if their advice can be used as advice, or their perspective might be representative of something you need to look at. But if you realize that it is simply their issue, then the negative belief will do everything in its power to keep you in the negativity by convincing you that what they're telling you about you, that is a negative idea, is actually true. You have to learn to tell the difference between your issues and theirs.
Convince you to blame others for your negative experience.
Yes, again, this is the other side of that coin from the person that's doing the blaming and the accusing and the projecting, is again, the negative belief will keep you in denial about the fact that you are dealing with that negative belief because it makes itself seem to be very scary, and therefore you can't look at that because it'll get even scarier. It'll get bigger and growl at you if you come close. So in order to preserve yourself, it activates the idea of your survival mechanism and says, this isn't about you. It must be caused by someone else. So blame someone else. Project someone else for the things you are scared about and fearful about within yourself so that you don't have to look at it. You can just foist it off on someone else, and then it isn't your problem anymore.
Convince you that you will suffer if you change your belief.
Oh yes, this is a good one. The idea of the tortures of the damned, allowing you to know that you are safe where you are, and this is another way of painting a positive reality in an extremely negative light by saying, look, even though you may not really be absolutely happy, you are comfortable and safe. And if you change from where you are, no matter how negative you may realize it is, I'm convincing you that where you think you want to go is going to be so much more difficult, so much scarier, that you really want to stay with what is familiar, because you are going to really suffer if you really try for that thing that you really prefer. And in fact, you may even fail at it, which would make you even more miserable. So why not just stay here where it's comfortable and safe? In my clutches.
Convince you you'll feel less lonely if others reinforce the negative belief.
This again is the idea of misery loves company. If you feel that you are in the idea of a negative state, a misery state, but you want to feel the idea that you are not alone so that you don't have to feel this by yourself, then you will invite in others who are just as miserable, and you will invite them to make you even more miserable, and you them, so that you can stay in a state that seems to be the common state, and thus, since everyone's doing it, I don't need to change. That's the idea. Look, everyone's doing it. Why do you need to be different? We're all miserable. Just stay that way.
Convince you it's too difficult to change.
Again, this goes hand in hand with some of the things we have already said, but this can be done in a variety of ways. And again, they will pinpoint within you beliefs that you may already have bought into, and they will amplify and magnify those specific things that you've already found to be difficult and make them seem even more difficult if you go in a different direction.
Convince you that it's impossible to change.
Again, same idea. It is simply against the laws of nature. You are what you are who you are. Don't rock the boat. There's nothing you can do about it.
Convince you to impart negative meaning to all situations.
Of course, because if you suddenly realize that everything is actually neutral and you can actually choose the meaning and get the effect based on the meaning, well, then the negative belief has lost its hold on you because suddenly you've neutralized it and it's just like any other belief. So it will again convince you that the only realistic thing to do is to impart negative meaning to every situation that looks in any way, shape, or form like anything you have ever been taught should be defined as negative, and not even allow you the chance to think that it could be defined in any other way. This is what everyone says this means. Why, again, go against the grain? You know that this is a bad thing. Everyone says this is a bad thing. So obviously it must actually be a bad thing. So please don't try to redefine it, because then you will just look silly. You will look like you are pie-in-the-sky fantasy. Everyone knows what the reality actually is.
Convince you to feel powerless to change by diminishing ability.
Again, if you allow yourself to be in the grip long enough of certain negative beliefs, they will actually make you feel that your energy is being drained away anytime you move in the direction of something that might be positive, to convince you that really you don't have the ability to do this. They will give you tiredness in a sense. They will make you feel like it's just not worth it. They will make you feel like this is going to be a real struggle, a real effort. They will make you actually feel weaker in a sense, because they give you more power by staying in the negative side, and they take that energy away when you move toward the positive side. It's not that you actually are weaker, it's just that by comparison they make it appear as if you're weaker because they infuse you with so much power when you come back in their direction.
Convince you to feel helpless to change by amplifying fear.
And again, they will prey upon the idea of any other negative belief that might generate the actual experience of fear, and they will pump power and energy into that fear to amplify it so much that you become so terrified, so frozen with terror about moving in the positive direction that you simply can do nothing about it. Or at least make it seem as if that's the case.
Convince you it's in your best interest to imagine the worst outcome.
Again, this goes hand in hand with the concept that you are being more realistic if you always imagine the worst. Because again, otherwise it reinforces the idea that if you don't look at life that way, people will think that you're some kind of Pollyanna, that you're not realistic, that you don't have your feet planted firmly on the ground, that you can't be trusted with things because you have a flighty imagination, so on and so forth, that you just live in a fantasy world. So by imagining the worst first, people will see you as, oh yes, the very realistic assessment, because that's the way everyone knows the world is, and then you'll be taken seriously. But again, that's the trap. Because everyone would like to be taken seriously, negative beliefs will equate the idea of being taken seriously with the idea of projecting always the worst case scenario for yourself, and pretty soon that becomes your habit.
Convince you that they have your best interests at heart.
Absolutely, as we've already touched on, the idea that, look, I'm taking care of you here. I'm not going to let harm come to you. I know that's a big bad world out there, and if you go and try and live your dreams in that big, black void of the unknown, well, I'm looking out for you. I'm protecting you. I'm keeping you from that big bad void with all of the monsters that are hiding there for you. I really, really am the one that is behind you. I have your back. I have your best interest at heart. So again, please stay in this vibration, because otherwise, well, if I'm not with you, who knows what might happen to you that would even be scarier than I can even imagine.
Convince you that the end justifies the means.
This is a big one in your society, because negative beliefs will convince you again by turning around the idea that positive is negative and negative is positive, will get you to start acting in negative ways, thinking that it's actually going to result in a positive outcome, which is simply not possible. The end and the means are one. So negative behavior will become the norm, and negative beliefs will constantly reinforce that negative behavior as an actual means to a positive end, which will never happen. Because it will then keep you searching and keep you searching and keep you thinking, yes, this is all going to work out, even though you're going about things in a very negative way. It will only lead to the amplification of more negativity, which is exactly what the negative belief wants to happen.
Reinforce their reality through negative synchronicity.
Synchronicity abounds all the time. But of course, the idea is that when you're in a negative state, the kind of synchronous reflections you're going to get are also going to be reflective of that negativity. So this is what you call bad luck in your language, where people say, well, if it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. The idea, again, is that when you're in a negative state, of course, that's going to be reinforced by synchronicity, because synchronicity is just a representation of a mechanism that is neutral, and it doesn't have a mind of its own, and it doesn't really care what kind of energy you put into the machine. The machine can only churn out what kind of energy you put in. So negative beliefs know this, and they will use the negative synchronicity when you're in the negative state, when they've got you in that negative state, and the negative synchronicity crops up to say, see? Told you so. The world is a big bad place. Look at this. You just need to follow what I'm telling you and better things will happen. That's where they use that other idea that just keep doing these negative things and something good will happen. But negative synchronicity will keep piling up and piling up and piling up, and they will have to work harder and harder and harder and harder to convince you that this is still the road to take. This is why so many people on your planet find that when they finally get to the point where they are so sick and tired of being in that state, they will finally allow themselves to change. But the reason you get so sick and tired of being in that state is because you've been in that state for so long, because the negative belief was capable of convincing you to stay in that state much longer than you really had to. That's why you're so exhausted and finally allow yourself to change. This is one of the loopholes in the idea of the negative belief, is that it will exhaust you to the point where one way or another you will finally exit that state of being. But you can exit it positively or you can exit it negatively. Sometimes the negative exit you refer to as suicide.
Prevent you from seeing positive opportunities.
As we have often said, you cannot perceive what you are not the vibration of first. If you are of a certain vibration that is negative, you simply are incapable of imagining positive opportunities. They're just invisible to you. Just don't think that way from a negative state. But when you're in a positive state, then all the opportunities that could be positive will show up in the positive synchronicity. And you'll have the capability of imagining what they may be and even creating some opportunities on your own. But again, the negative belief will do its best to make sure that you stay in a state where you can't even imagine that there might be a positive opportunity. You just won't understand the language of positive reality by steeping yourself in the negative energy.
Prevent you from finding the core belief by getting you to focus on secondary ones.
This is a favorite trick, so to speak, of the deep core negative belief, is that it will surround itself with all sorts of shells and layers of other secondary and tertiary level beliefs, allowing you to think, well, if they're going to come looking, I'm going to make sure they find this and they find that. It's red herrings and decoys everywhere, so that you think, oh, I found the negative belief. Oh, goody, it's gone now. And you move on with your life and suddenly find that your behavior is the same and your feelings are the same. And you wonder, what the heck happened? I thought I let that go. Well, there is the negative belief deep down in its little lair going, hee hee hee. They haven't found me. And it will keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that until you finally achieve the level of willingness that is necessary for you to just break through all those different levels and really look for the core definition, which, when you find it and let that go, will allow the secondary and tertiary level negative beliefs to just collapse, because now they have no more foundation.
Distract you from investigating your beliefs.
Oh, that's a big one too. Yes, I am going to go about investigating those. Oh, shiny. Oh, what was I doing? Oh, yes, I'm going to get to the bottom of these Oh, that looks like fun. The negative belief will do that too. Look at that. Oh, look at that. You've been wanting to do that for a while, right? I'm your pal. I'm your buddy. Let's go do that. That looks like much more fun than looking for me. It will do anything it can to prolong the process, in other words.
Convince you to believe they're not doing any of these things.
Exactly. As somebody has said, colloquially speaking, one of the greatest tricks of the devil is convincing you he doesn't exist. Yes? So the idea is that this is really what's happening, and that's what that phrase comes from, is that negative beliefs will also impart to you such a willing suspension of disbelief that you actually will not even see or be capable of imagining that such a belief even exists. You will think this is coming from the outside. This is a true victim mentality now, where you think everything is against me. This is paranoia. This is saying the world is to blame. This is saying I am a victim and everything is happening to me in life instead of happening through me in life. This is where the negative belief really gets you to believe that there isn't something happening within your consciousness, that it's all real out there and it's all coming from out there, and there is no negative belief. This is just the way the world is. It's a cruel, mean place. Get over it.
Convince you to deny that negative beliefs exist within you.
Same thing.
Convince you to believe you're the exception to the ability to change.
Absolutely. This is, again, an amplification of the state of arrogance, where, oh yes, and the state of victimization, where, oh yes, I know you could probably change if you really wanted to. I know you could do it. Everyone can do it, but somehow I can't. I'm the exception to the rule. That's actually, even though it seems like a victim position, is actually a state of high arrogance, that you would think that out of all beings in creation, you're the only one who cannot change. That's calling attention to yourself in a very negative way, which amplifies the negative energy within you.
Convince you to feel comfortable with negativity.
Oh yes. If you live with it long enough and it has done its job to scare you that every other direction is going to be worse, then you will settle down into that couch and it will start to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat away at you very slowly over time, until you find that you and the couch have fused into one thing. And now if you want to go and do something, now it's convinced you that you really can't even move, because now not only do you have the weight of your own self, but you have the weight of the couch. And now the couch has fused to the floor of the house. And now you really can't do anything about it, so you might as well just stay there and enjoy it. Enjoy wallowing in your misery. This is what happens when you call it wallowing in misery. You just give up, give over all your power, and this is just the way it is, and you just fade away.
Convince you to believe no positive tools will work.
This is also a big one, because again, the idea is that they paint all positive ideas in a negative light. And when you expose yourself, or even have the possibility or probability of being exposed to tools that could help you, they will really work hard to convince you that those things are just falderall. It's just wishful thinking. Those things never really work at all. Please don't even go that way. That's really just a fantasy. You're living in fantasy land. You understand?
Convince you to distort and view positive information as negative.
Again, a variation of the idea of positive beliefs, where again it won't even allow you to actually comprehend some of the information that you are receiving that could be helping you move in a positive direction. It will distort it, filter it, twist it in such a way that you will really see it as something other than what it is, and again not be capable of taking advantage of the positive information. It will make it seem discordant. Because you are in a negative state, out of alignment, out of phase with your true vibration, anytime the true vibration approaches you, it will get louder too and create such a cacophony of distortion. It will then make your ears bleed to listen to it, so you'll move away from that positive information. It will make it seem that you are so vibrationally incompatible with that it must be a bad thing, because you are wonderful and you are good, and anything coming to you that makes you feel this way must be bad. So please ignore it. Please run away from it as fast as you possibly can, back into my arms, where you are nice and safe and cozy forever.
And finally, convince you to justify keeping the negative belief.
When the negative belief has really done its job well and really convinced you that that's the safest place, anything and everything will be used as a justification to maintain it. Any negative feeling you have will be focused on so that you don't have to focus on the belief itself. Any negative thoughts will be focused on that you can justify the idea. You will look at your history and anything that might have happened in what you call the past that was negative to say, but look, this happened to me, so it will happen again. But look, I must be held back by habits and patterns that I was taught. But look, this is the way the world is, so who am I to say different? You will find any reason at all to justify all of these tools and tricks and keep the negative belief in charge of what it is you think, what it is you feel, what it is you say, and how it is you behave. You will now be working as the negative belief's agent on its behalf, and you will really be its minion doing its job along with it to continue to convince yourself that the negative belief is the best possible state of being for you. And then, in a sense, the negative belief can start to relax because it's convinced you that you have to do its job for it. You now work for it, and not the other way around. Fascinating, isn't it? All right. So, before we go on to the idea of the neutralizers, please understand that these things have been, as we have said, handed down and handed down and handed down. But that's not a reason why they should continue. This is just an idea. And you have projected these things, and the negative beliefs have projected themselves into all forms of archetypal iconography and imagery to make sure that they remain in the forefront of your consciousness and right in front of your face all the time. And that's okay, because polarity is going to be everywhere you look. But the key is recognizing that all of the presentations that the negative beliefs make are only that. They're just presentations, they're just symbols, they're just representations, and they don't have to contain any solidity, any validity in the sense of believing that they're true for you. They are valid as beliefs, but you don't have to prefer them, and you don't have to invalidate them. You just need to allow them to be neutral. Shall we go down the list quickly of the neutralizers?
Yes, we shall.
That being the first one that I just told you above and beyond the list, because this is the main principle behind the neutralizers, is to realize the illusion and the lies behind the negative beliefs. Because as we said in the beginning, the idea is that the negative beliefs have to work very hard to convince you that you're unworthy because you know that you are worthy. And therefore, this is all smoke and mirrors. And by demonstrating the idea of the transition from a simple recognition to a complex and quote-unquote scary archetypal presentation in your mythology, you see how the negative beliefs have to work to create illusions when all they really are just standing behind the curtain, pushing the levers, going, hope they believe this one. This is my best trick yet. I am Oz the great and powerful. You understand. And so, let's look behind the curtain.
Yes, and these are negativity neutralizers. The first being remembering that negative feelings are generated by negative beliefs.
When you understand that that's the succession, that you have to have the belief first in order to have any feeling at all, because you have to have a definition in order to know what you're feeling about, then as soon as you have a negative feeling or a feeling that's uncomfortable for you, own it. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't try to ignore it. Own it. You have to acknowledge that it's there because you can't change what you don't own. But realize that as soon as you have the feeling, you can use the feeling. Remember that the feeling has to come from a definition first. So once you feel the feeling, that can be your first aha. If I'm feeling this, there has to be a definition generating it. Let's find out what it is. What I have to believe is true in order to feel the way I do. And that can help you unlock from the fear and go into curiosity and discovery to find out what that negative belief actually is. And once you identify it, it will automatically appear illogical and nonsensical, and you realize that you simply bought into it somewhere along the way, your parents, your society, your friends, your schooling, and you will realize that it's baggage that doesn't belong to you, and you can drop it. Go ahead.
You can neutralize negative beliefs by remembering that negative beliefs are only beliefs and they're not actually true.
Everything is just a belief in terms of your physical reality experience. The only things that are absolutes are the 5 laws that we have often talked about. Everything else is just a combination of those laws and an experience of the idea of polarity projections from belief systems as a physical being, because that's what you're made of. You're really made of. Your physical mind is just made of belief systems. That's all it is. They're just filters that allow you to experience the idea of yourself as a projection into physical reality. But physical reality is just a dream. In reality, you are all, right now, still in spirit. You're just dreaming that you're not. That's it. You never leave spirit. It's your natural state. It's what you are. So you are now imposing upon your spirit, upon your consciousness, the dream that you are having a physical reality. And that's all it is. But you're still in spirit right now. So let's wake up and remember that.
Another neutralizer is remembering that beliefs can always be changed.
A belief inherently is changeable when you believe that it is. So this is the skeleton key that unlocks you from any belief, is no matter how hard a negative belief may work to convince you to buy into it, if you just give yourself an opportunity to always take a pause and remember that it is just a belief, then you will always know you always have the key to change it if you truly prefer to. That's the skeleton key that unlocks you from any belief, is just remembering that it is nothing but a belief.
Remembering that all situations are fundamentally neutral.
And again, notice how all of or most of these neutralizers have to do with just remembering these ideas. That's all. And again, remember that the negative belief is going to do its darndest to get you to forget, to get you to not realize that there are such concepts. Remember, we said it will paint these things as if it's something to not pay attention to. So in a fact, the idea of just remembering some of these ideas can, in many cases, be enough to neutralize them, just because you broke through the forgetfulness the negative belief was intending to impose upon your consciousness. Just remembering can eradicate many of these beliefs, just remembering these things. And that will put you back into a state of neutrality, which, as we have said, is actually slightly bent always in the positive direction, because neutrality is a state in which you are free to choose, and that's a positive state. So in a sense, you could say that creation is actually just slightly more positive than negative, because there is a middle state of neutrality that allows you more ease of choosing the positive. And if you just drift in neutrality, even if you just do that, the current of creation will eventually bend you in the positive direction if you do nothing else but just go with the flow. That's a powerful one, isn't it? All right.
Remember that your existence and your worth are more fundamental than any belief.
Beliefs are just the creation of the idea of the physical mind. Your existence is far more fundamental. That, in some senses, should be obvious. And if you exist, that means you have to be worthy, because creation doesn't make mistakes. And if you exist, then that means existence needs you to exist, or existence wouldn't be complete. So you are that worthy, because again, the things that existence didn't need don't exist. So your worth and your existence are far more fundamental than any belief. And if you just go back to that core remembrance, then the belief will be seen as a secondary level illusion and not a true fundamental truth or reality.
Remember that negative beliefs make positive beliefs easier to see by contrast.
You can use the idea of negativity in a positive way. That's basically what this means. So you're not invalidating the negative belief, but turning it back on itself and saying, well, thank you, negative belief, for being so dark, because by being so dark, you actually allow it to be much easier to see the little light in the distance, which, if things were brighter, I might not have noticed. So, in the vastness and empty void of space, a single tiny spark of light is much easier to see because of all the blackness. So you can use the negativity to your advantage and turn its trick around on itself by saying, thank you for showing me the contrast, because many times it's a lot easier for many of you to simply understand what it is you do prefer by being shown an example very clearly of what you don't prefer by contrast. Then you know what direction to go in more easily.
Another neutralizer is that you can remember that negative beliefs are your creation and that you're always in control, you're always empowered, and even if you're using your power to make it seem like you're out of control.
That's again the thing to understand about the nature of existence and your existence as well, is that there can be no such thing as an actual disconnection from Source. But Source supports you so unconditionally in your choices that you can choose to pretend that you are disconnected. But the paradox is the only way you can actually have an experience of disconnection is to use your connection to create it. So if you remember that you're always empowered, then you will realize and remember that the only way you could possibly have an experience of disempowerment is if you're using your power to create that experience of disempowerment. And once you remember that it's simply not actually possible to be disempowered, again, you will neutralize the negative belief's insistence on your lack of power.
Another neutralizer is if you remember that positive beliefs will never use negative reinforcement, but that negative beliefs will always use positive reinforcement because they are deceptive by design.
Exactly. So always pay attention when they are leading you down the so-called primrose path and painting a rosy picture of something that you know is actually negative, because they have to work very hard to make it seem positive in order for you to follow it. But you can recognize that they are being deceitful because that's their nature to be so in order to perpetuate themselves, because you know the truth about yourselves, and they have to lie to you to get you to buy into what they're saying by pretending that they know better, by pretending they have your best interests at heart, and then coloring things to make it look like that's the path to take, when really, if you just stood back and looked at what they were doing, you would realize that it's just a path of rocks and thorns that they're convincing you to step on.
Another thing that you can do is you can remember the yin-yang concept, that no matter how dark things may seem, you always have the ability to reach the light.
Within the idea of the polarity in existence, there is always an opportunity, just as in the yin-yang symbol, to recognize that on the dark side, there is always a spot of white. And on the dark side, there always is that, and on the white side, always a spot of dark. So that you know the doorways exist in both directions, and you can always choose. No matter how dark it may seem, you will always know there is a doorway to the light. Always. But at the same time knowing that no matter how light it seems, you always have the power to choose the dark. This again brings you back into balance, brings you back into the center point where you can neutralize everything and realize that all choices are just equally valid, and then choose what you prefer with a clear conscience and from a state of balance. So remember that symbol.
Another method is to remember to be okay with the process of discovering what your negative beliefs are so that you can let go of them.
Many people, again, are convinced by the negative belief that they should be absolutely perfectly spiritual beings by now. Why do these things keep happening to me? What's wrong with me? I should be far beyond this at this particular point. But you see, the process is the point. You will transition at some point from the idea of letting go of negative beliefs to something else. but it will always be a process. So be okay with process, because process is the point of having a physical life. Because you cannot change without the idea of process. In a timeless state, there's no change. Only by creating the illusion of space and time can you go through the idea of discovering yourself from a new point of view. So be happy with the process. Love the process. Be passionate about discovering through the process, because process is the equivalent of life. You're living a life that is by nature a process of discovery. That's what it's all about. The journey is the destination. The process is the point. So live in the process, live in the now with the process, and it will serve you in positive ways. Let it be okay to go through those processes. The difference will come in this way. At some point, when you are finally willing to investigate all the negative beliefs, bring them to conscious light, and let them go, the process of letting things go will continue. But the way the process then expresses itself is it changes from letting go of negative beliefs to letting go of things that are simply no longer relevant for you in life. They may be positive things, but eventually you will streamline yourself by letting go of even positive things that simply are no longer relevant for the being you now know and prefer yourself to be. So the process won't stop even when you let go of all the negative ideas. So please don't turn the process into another negative idea, because it isn't, or doesn't have to be.
Another neutralizer is remember that negative beliefs belong to someone else and you don't have to carry them.
Yes. As we said, things that are truly out of alignment with who you are don't belong to you. You most likely picked them up along the way. But they are baggage that belong to other people that you've simply been convinced that you have to carry. But because it belongs to other people, that's why it's so heavy. That's why it weighs you down. The beliefs that are true and in alignment for you weigh nothing. It feels effortless. You feel light as a feather. When you start to feel weighed down, that can be one of the clues you're carrying something that doesn't belong to you. So investigate it. Drop the baggage. As we have said, do not steal other people's beliefs and be a belief thief. You don't want to steal other people's beliefs. Drop them and move on and lighten your load. Remember that the first step to enlightenment is to lighten up on yourself and lighten your load.
Remember that you're never alone and you always have help.
You may always be capable of experiencing solitude in a positive way, but you are never, ever, 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 ever actually, truly alone. You cannot be, because you are connected to everything. You are everything, expressing itself as everything, expressing itself as every aspect of itself. And thus you are all the reflections, and they are you. You are never alone. You have help, you have guides, you have friends, you have family on many different levels, and connections more than you can imagine from this perspective. You can always create the experience of solitude, and that solitude will always be respected to give you the space you need to function as the individual that you are. But you are never, ever, ever alone. And the second that anyone knows that assistance is required, assistance is always given. You are constantly, in fact, being bombarded with all the assistance we, your guides, and many other beings and source can possibly give. If you feel that the assistance isn't there, it's not because it's not being given, it's because you are blocking the reception by negative beliefs and buying into them. So as soon as you let go, you will suddenly realize, and in fact almost be blinded with the assistance that is always flowing your way without let up of any kind. So tap into that river and let it flow through you, because it's always coming. It cannot stop.
Remember that you're always loved and supported, no matter what.
Again, this goes to your worthiness. If you were not worthy, you wouldn't exist. So if you exist, you're worthy. And the idea is, therefore, you have absolute right to all the energy, all the support, all the love, as you call it, of all that is, because that is the energy of existence itself. And if you are part of existence, then it is your nature to experience the ideas you translate in your reality as unconditional love and support. It's your nature that you're experiencing when you experience those energies. It's the nature of existence itself translating in physical terms that you call that feeling of unconditional love and unconditional support. It's your nature.
Remember to forgive yourself and others.
Forgiveness is exceedingly powerful as a tool. Here's exactly vibrationally why. Forgiveness is a state of being that can actually mitigate the effects of the consequences of a negative act. You have, many of you at least, heard of the idea that when you die, many people experience what is called life review. Yes? And in that life review experience, it has been reported that what happens, because there are no longer the same barriers between you and another, that you will suddenly start to experience in that life review not only the things that happened visually, but you will actually experience the consequences of anything you chose to do and the way in which others may have experienced them based on your intentions, as if you're experiencing the consequences from their point of view. You understand? So if you have in any way, shape, or form intentionally caused hurt or harm to someone, in the life review, you will feel exactly what they felt when you did that, as if you were them. Forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness from others, forgiveness to others is actually a vibrational state that will actually mitigate the effect of the consequence of a negatively intentioned act. So the more forgiveness you can create for yourselves, the more you can forgive others, the more you are evening the playing field, and the less need there is for you to experience the idea of the negative energy that was initially created by a negative act. It's as simple as that. It is a mitigation cancellation system. That's what forgiveness is as an energy. It's bringing everything back to zero.
Another neutralizing method is to remember that you can choose what you prefer without invalidating what you don't prefer.
The only reason you would choose to invalidate something you don't prefer is if you have a belief that it is somehow more powerful than you are at deciding what you prefer. Because if you have to invalidate it, then you're saying you have to have extra protection. You have to somehow shun it and push it away. But there's nowhere to push anything to. Imagine that because everything is actually here and now, that the walls of existence are right here. And if there's a big spring on the wall and you push against that spring, the only thing you're doing is building up energy in that spring by denying it and pushing it away. So at some point, that energy is going to build up so much, so powerfully, that it's going to pop back at you. It has no choice because it has nowhere to go. This is what invalidation does. But if you simply validate everything, then the springs just sit there. And you go, well, okay, there's this negative spring and there's this positive spring and they're just sitting there and I'm not going to give you undue energy. And I'm just going to choose what I prefer. This is what I prefer. That's it. There's no charge on it. This is simply a recognition of what I prefer. That's it. And then you act in that direction. And that's all there is to it. Invalidation charges the thing you don't prefer because it's a negative energy. So if you don't prefer a negative thing, why would you feed it more negative energy? By invalidating it. You're just feeding it, and when you feed something, it'll grow. Don't feed it.
Be willing to be honest with yourself about your beliefs.
Absolutely. In your investigation, do not succumb to the convincing of the negative belief that makes you go into denial that the negative beliefs are there. They're always going to be there for a while, And your excitement in following it will reveal to you any negative beliefs that may be remaining within your personality structure. And that's all right. Just discover them. Don't go into denial about it. If you go into the idea again that, well, I'm supposed to be this perfect spiritual being that has absolutely no negative beliefs, well, then that's a negative belief. Again, it's the negative belief convincing you that you're perfect so you don't have to look at things. But you are perfect anyway. You're perfect as you are. Whatever version of you are at the moment is absolutely a perfect version of what you are at the moment. In the next moment, you may be different, but you will just be a different, perfect version of that. So you're always already perfect, even though you will always constantly change.
Another important thing to remember is don't let fear stop your momentum. If you're going to be afraid anyway, then go ahead and push through it and do what you love doing regardless.
This is just a logical argument. If you're going to be afraid, why not be afraid while you're doing what you love instead of sitting around not doing anything and being afraid? It's as simple as that. You might as well, if you're going to be afraid, be doing something you love to do while you're being afraid. And as soon as you actually start moving in the direction of what you love to do, you will find that you'll be less afraid. Very simple self-canceling mechanism.
Yeah, and if you find that you are experiencing fear, push through the fear. Even though it'll get louder and stronger, that only means it's reaching its breaking point, and eventually it will dissolve.
As we said, negative beliefs have to work very hard to get your attention, to turn your face away from the truth that you're absolutely worthy. So as soon as you start moving in the positive direction, they're going to start yelling as loud as they can. They're going to start banging on drums. They're going to have a 76-piece orchestra trying to get your attention so that you will come back in that direction. So the louder it gets, the stronger the fear feels, should tell you you're really close to crossing the threshold and letting it go, or it wouldn't have to work so hard to get your attention.
And don't forget that if you're the creator of the negative belief, then you are more powerful than the negative belief.
You're the one that created it. No matter though it may convince you that it has power over you, it always knows that you are the creator of the negative belief. And of course, if you realize that, then the negative belief is neutralized. So it will do everything in its power to convince you that you are not as powerful as it is. But if you created it, you have to be more powerful than it is.
Remember, positive beliefs allow you to feel light and free. It's negative beliefs that make you feel tired and heavy.
And again, we come back to the idea of the loophole that while you can lighten your load as you go, if for some reason you are holding on and holding on and holding on and holding on and getting tireder and tireder, more exhausted, and wondering why you have absolutely no joie de vivre, then the idea can be used as a turnaround to recognize that eventually, if you maintain any degree of desire to go in the positive direction, that you will one day become so sick and tired of being sick and tired that you will finally let all of that negativity go. Now, you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait that long. But at least you know that someday, if you're that sick and tired, you might finally be willing to let go of the thing that's actually making you sick and tired.
And here's an interesting one. Drop what your ego wants.
Yes. Know the difference between what you prefer and what your ego is telling you you want. Because more often than not, what the ego wants is what the negative ego is attempting to convince you of that you need, and to distract you from what really would serve you, what would really be representative of what you need, what would really be representative of your joy. It will convince you that you must want this and you must want that in order to be happy. And again, all it's doing in many cases is leading you down a primrose path.
Let go of all of your assumptions and go to zero.
Yes. And we will continue because this will culminate in the final one.
Which is don't resist change, go with the flow.
And
Remember the famous quote.
pay attention.
It's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know that just isn't so.
Assumptions. Negative beliefs will convince you that you know what you're talking about when you don't. So always allow yourself to know that many different kinds of statements that may sound like facts may only be assumptions that are reinforced by negative beliefs to convince you that you know what you're talking about and that you know better than what someone else may be attempting to tell you that could help you. So you will become the ultimate authority. I know it all. You can't tell me anything new. But there's the trap. It's not so much that you get into trouble with what you don't know. It's what you know that just isn't so, because you've been convinced that it's true and it may not be. So always look for the things that come out of your mouth and pay attention to whether they are just assumptions or true statements of your being. Because negative beliefs will make assumptions appear to be facts, and they're nothing again but smoke and mirrors. Now again, these are just a few of the ideas, both negative and positive. It is up to your own imagination to provide whatever may work for you. But the more you allow yourself to look at this list and study this list, the more it will rub off on you the way in which negative beliefs work. You will start to really see behind the curtain, understand the illusions and the tricks, and then start to catch them in the act. And then realize how empowered you are. And then you can move in the direction that you prefer.